well, let's face it, I think I could do a bit better than Colonel Brandon. I could probably bag a Captain Wentworth, or, if I'm lucky, a Captain Wentworth or a Henry Tilney. Have you ever heard of a choose your own adventure story? Well, I'm going to try one Jane Austen style. My name's Jack, this is Spread Book Joy, and it has been the first Jane Austen July that I haven't put out any content or really taken part in Jane Austen July. It's been a bit of a crazy month, couple of months, and I took a bit of a break from BookTube, so I'm back. And Jane Austen July is one of my absolute favourite readathons. One of the reasons that I got involved in the community on BookTube a bit more, and I adore Jane Austen. I'm a huge fan. If you're not sure of what Jane Austen July is, it's a month-long readathon devoted to reading Jane Austen, and it is hosted by Katie at Books and Things, Marissa at Blatantly Bookish, and Claudia from Spinster's Library, all of whom are amazing booktubers, and you'll probably follow them, but if you don't, go follow them. And I will link all of their announcement videos in the description box below in case you've not seen those. So this video is about something that I planned about 18 months ago and I still hadn't done, but I'm going to show you an envelope that's been on my shelves. It says Jane Austen July, for Jane Austen July 2024, exclamation mark, and I put that on there. When I put this away and packed it up to move, and I put it in boxes and moved to Devon with it, and the reason it's not been opened is because I thought I'd open it on camera. So I'm going to open it up now, and then I'm going to show you it, and I'm going to tell you the story behind it, and then hopefully maybe do some actual content with it. So this is pretty exciting for me because I can't remember what the book's called. Oh, cool. So this is the book, Lost in Austen. Now, I haven't seen the cover of it before because I've only seen this. I've only seen the spine, and the spine said, Lost in Austen, create your own Jane Austen adventure. So isn't that a pretty cover? Oh, look, and the cover's got like a cutout there. So it says, your name, Elizabeth Bennet. Your mission, to marry both prudently and for love. Avoiding family scandal, equipped only with your sharp wit, natural good sense and tolerable beauty, you must navigate your way through a variety of decisions that will determine your own romantic and financial fate. Ever wonder what would happen if Elizabeth accepted Mr. Darcy's proposal the first time round, or ran from his arms into those of Persuasion's Captain Wentworth? Now is your chance to find out. Create your own Austen adventure. It begins with Pride and Prejudice, but your decisions along the way will lead you into the plots of Austen's other works and even newly imagined territory. Lost in Austen is a labyrinth of love and lies, scandals and scoundrels, misfortunes and marriages that will delight and challenge any Austen lover. Will Elizabeth succeed in her mission? It's all up to you. So I thought this would be fun to do a vlog of, and the reason I found it, there's a little story behind it. So the spine is the only thing I'd ever seen because about 18 months ago I had to move in to my brother's for a while and all my books were in storage, and when I was filming videos, and I'll try and pop a screenshot up here so you can see it, I thought, oh, you know what, I've got a big computer screen behind me at my desk, maybe I'll put a backdrop of a bookshelf. So I hunted on Google Images, found this backdrop, put it on my desktop, forgot about it, didn't really look at it too much. And then one day I was looking at it, I thought, I'm just looking at the books, browsing the books as you do, and I saw this spine, and I thought, I wonder if that's a thing. Is that a real book? Yes, it was. And I found a secondhand copy on Amazon and I ordered it, and it came all the way from the Netherlands, as it turns out, according to that. I'm really delighted with this cover. So my thought was I would do the reading and I would vlog it. So this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Back in the, I suppose maybe in the 70s, but definitely in the 80s when I was a child, there were choose your own adventure stories, and the big ones were the fighting fantasy books by Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone. This is the first one, Warlock of Firetop Mountain. I'm sure that's the first one. And I did have, but I can't remember. These aren't my original copies. These are ones I hunted down and got, and I love them so much, and I used to read them with children. I used to run a little lunchtime club and we would do fighting fantasy books. And so I've just had a look at Austen, Lost in Austen, and it is completely, I thought it was going to be like, you know, just like, turn to this page or whatever, because when you do fighting fantasy, you're supposed to roll a dice, you're supposed to have like strength points, and you're supposed to battle creatures and do stuff. So it turns out you're supposed to do this for Lost in Austen as well. So I'm just going to read you a little bit of what it says. Also, what's really exciting is this quote in the front is from Jasper Fforde, author of The Air Affair and all these other books here. I absolutely love a bit of Jasper Fforde. So That bodes well because Jasper Fforde said it's a must read for Jane Austen fans everywhere. Enlightening and unostentatious, ha ha ha, a must read for Austen fans everywhere. Exciting. So it says here that this book is no ordinary book and should not be read through from beginning to end. It contains many different adventures, and the path you take will depend on the choices you make along the way. The success or failure of your mission will depend on the decisions you make. So your mission is to marry well. While your choices will determine your journey, your success will depend on how well you do in the following 5 categories: your accomplishments, intelligence, confidence, connections, and fortune, which could mean either luck or money. On separate pieces of paper, draw up lists for the 5 different categories. Begin with high scores for your intelligence and confidence, 200 points each, but with a regrettably low fortune score, only 50 points, and absolutely no accomplishments or connections. In order to increase your chances of marrying well, you must try to improve your scores, gain more connections and accomplishments. At intervals during your adventure, you'll be given bonus opportunities to increase your scores by taking tests or answering questions. Fun. But take care. While you can gain points, you can also lose them, which could harm your chance of marrying happily and affect the outcome of your adventure. Though, it says here, if the mere suggestion of scorekeeping gives you palpitations, fear not. You can choose not to keep track of your scores if you so wish. When asked to check them, simply choose from whichever score you fancy from one of the 2 options you're offered. You may now begin your adventure. Good luck. I suppose I should have started this video by saying there are going to be massive spoilers for all of Jane Austen's novels in here, so if you've not read them, maybe give this one a miss. But yeah, this book is lots and lots of fun, and I imagine they probably put on the back there's massive spoilers for all the books, but there you go. So I'm about to start talking about it, so there may be some spoilers, but we start with the opening scenes of Pride and Prejudice. I am Elizabeth Bennet. I have met Mr. Darcy at the local ball. We've been to Netherfield, been invited to Netherfield. I've been spurned. I've been told I am tolerable, blah, 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 blah. All of these things. And all the way through, it gives you different points if you wanted to play it as a game. But I'm just going to read it, and I will play the parts, but it says you don't have to keep the scores for fortune or connections, but it is quite funny as well, because in between, when certain scenes happen, it will say something like, add Charlotte Lucas to your list of superior connections, or add resentful to your list of failings and deduct 10 intelligence points. So things like that, which is quite fun. I imagine if you're playing along for real, it would be really good fun. But this is where we get to our first point, where we have to choose. You make your journey at a quick pace without a care for your appearance. So Lizzie is going to Netherfield to see her poor sick sister Jane. Without a care for your appearance, eagerly jumping over stiles and springing over puddles, spurred on by your creditable devotion to your sister, you hastily climb over a gate and find yourself in a field you don't recognise. There are 2 paths ahead of you. To take the path to the left, turn to page 29. To take the path to the right, turn to page 20. I'm going to turn to page 20, I think. The path leads you to the top of the field where you can clearly see the way to Netherfield. You quicken your pace a little and arrive at the house with weary ankles, dirty stockings, and a face glowing with the warmth of exercise. So I don't think anything's happened that's different or out of the ordinary. I wonder what would have happened if I'd taken the left-hand path. But never mind. The next choice I have to make is following the scene where Miss Bingley and Elizabeth Bennet walk around the drawing room, and Mr. Darcy is argues with Elizabeth, and they talk about the fact that he is prideful, and that they talk about each other's defects, and he says, I believe in every disposition a tendency to some particular evil, a natural defect, which is not even the most education can overcome. And your defect, you say, with meaning, is a propensity to hate everybody, and yours, he replies with a smile, is willfully to misunderstand them. So that argument that they have. And then the next choice I have to make is to either return home with Jane, which is what happens in the carriage. So trust her improved appearance and urge Jane to borrow Mr. Bingley's carriage and immediately return, which is what happens in the book. I could suggest that Jane takes advantage of the restorative properties of fresh air and exercise by walking back the way we came, page 51. Or I could stay a few days longer to ensure Jane is fully recovered and turn to page 36. So I think page 36 sounds intriguing, to see what would happen if they'd stayed at Netherfield. But I also wonder, if they're walking back, are they going to bump into someone a bit more interesting? So I think I might turn to page 51 and decide to walk back rather than take the carriage. I'll probably end up killing Jane. Oh, no. So I decided to go walk back from Netherfield instead of taking the carriage, which is what happens in Pride and Prejudice. And I've somehow I've left Jane at home but decided I was enjoying the walk so much I'm going to go and walk on the hills. And then this might sound familiar to people, but I'm walking on the hills, a storm approaches, I take a tumble, and who should come to rescue me but a man called Willoughby. Willoughby, of course, is the scoundrel from Sense and Sensibility who breaks Marianne Dashwood's heart. And so he picks up Elizabeth Bennet, me, takes me home and deposits me on the couch, and all the things that happened to Marianne Dashwood in Sense and Sensibility now happen to me as Elizabeth Bennet, and I fall in love with Willoughby. But Willoughby has just told you, he's staying with a rich relative in town, that Mrs. Smith has exercised the privilege of riches upon a poor dependent cousin by sending Willoughby on business to London. He has no intention of returning to Meryton. The latest disappointment would be a great test of your sensibility. Your reaction must exactly match the level of your distress. Take the following sensibility test and see which sensibility type you are. The man you love and from whom you were expecting a proposal of marriage suddenly leaves the countryside with no immediate plans to return. Do you? A. Try your hardest to conceal your emotions from your family, forgiving fear of giving them any share of the pain that you feel all too strongly yourself, as in the lovely Eleanor Dashwood, which is what she would do. B. Take your place at dinner that night with eyes red and swollen, restraining your tears with difficulty, neither eating nor speaking, but awake the next morning with a greater degree of composure following a reasonable night's sleep. That sounds a bit more sensible. C. Take your place at dinner that night with eyes red and swollen, restraining your tears with difficulty, neither eating nor speaking, then rise from your bed the next morning in need of repose, more in need of repose than when you lay down in it, unable to talk, unwilling to take any nourishment, and give pain every moment to your family, which is what happens to Marianne Dashwood in Sense and Sensibility, and she always got on my nerves. So I'm going to take the path of Eleanor Dashwood, because I always like Eleanor. I know some people that might think that Marianne is, she's, feeling her feelings, everything else, but Eleanor's just quiet and just soldiering on, and I like Eleanor. Plus, I really like Emma Thompson playing her, even though she's like 15 years too old to play the part of a 19-year-old in the Ang Lee Sense and Sensibility. I still love it. Okay, so A, try your hardest to conceal your emotions. Page 68. You are totally devoid of sensibility. When you should have been reading novels, you were probably reading sermons. Your emotions are not likely to be discovered by anybody. You conceal them so well, you are barely sensible of them yourself. You are the type most likely to end up an old maid. Okay, continue on. It says, add the sensible type to your list of failings and deduct 300 intelligence points. That ought to redress the balance a bit. Well, that told me. So the story continues along the vein of Sense and Sensibility. We go to London to take in, some entertainments of the season to, make sure that I'm not moping away about Willoughby. And then Willoughby's friend Colonel Brandon turns up, and they feel that there's a rumour that I'm engaged to Willoughby. And then I'm much like Marianne Dashwood in Sense and Sensibility. I'm mooning about the place, writing letters to Willoughby, not getting any responses. And then Jane and I see him at a ball. And then he kind of ignores me, and it turns out he's with someone else. So my choices are ignore my better judgment and follow Willoughby out of the room to confront him and the lady directly, or comply with my sister's entreaties, who is telling me to, be composed and not follow him, and wait until morning when you hope to be more reasonable. I'm going to wait, because let's see what happens. Let's do something different from the actual story. And also, I don't think Elizabeth Bennet would do she does want love over, she wants to marry for love, doesn't she? So there is that romantic element to Elizabeth Bennet, but Marianne Dashwood is just like passionate about love. So I don't know, I don't see, there are similarities in their character, in their belief in the power of love, I suppose, but I think Elizabeth's just far too clever to fall for someone like Willoughby, though he is very handsome. Let's see what happens. So basically, the same thing that happens. I get a letter the next day. This is what happens to Marianne in Sense and Sensibility, and it's Willoughby returning my lock of hair and telling me that he is sorry if I felt mistaken, that we were meant more to each other than we did. And depending on my sensibility type, which was sensible as it turns out, I have to turn to a different page. So if I'm the sensible type, which I am, I have to turn to page 63. So let's see what happens to me as a sensible type. I'm hoping I'm just going to get on with things and not mope about, because quite honestly, You read it with indignation, though aware before you began it that it must bring a confession of his inconstancy and confirm your separation forever. You were not aware that such language could be suffered to announce it. You hide the depth of your emotion from Jane in order to spare her any share of the pain you feel all too deeply yourself. A shockingly inadequate reaction deducts 100 fortune points. I'm not doing well at this game in amassing a fortune if I were keeping score of such things. Continue on page 30. And so here I get my first proposal. As Elizabeth Bennet, I then I'm following Marianne Dashwood's path. I've gone to Cleveland with Lady Lucas. So in this, because it's Pride and Prejudice, it's not what are they called? Can't remember their name. Anyway, they go back to the house. They're staying there and go to Combe Magna, get a cold, in bed, violently ill with a cold, recover. Colonel Brandon saves me. He tells us a story of Willoughby's terrible past, and then he proposes to me. And this is my first proposal. Do I accept Colonel Brandon, or do I wait for a better offer? Well, let's face it, I think I could do a bit better than Colonel Brandon. I could probably bag Captain Wentworth, or, if I'm lucky, a Captain Wentworth or a Henry Tilney. Years ago, it would have been Darcy for me all the way, but I was always confusing like the 1995 BBC adaptation Colin Firth version of Darcy with the book character. The character in the book is actually fairly, apart from being massively wealthy, he's pretty boring, right? Captain Wentworth, yes, or Henry Tilney's good fun. So I'm going to try and get one of those. So we carry on with the story of Pride and Prejudice. I go back to Longbourn. My heart is mended from Willoughby, and we carry on with things. And Mr. Collins comes to stay, and he's intending to marry one of us. We go to a party in Meryton, and I meet Mr. Wickham. So I'm at a card table with Mr. Wickham, and he talks about his past with Mr. Darcy, and he asks me if I want to ask him more. Do I want to ask him more, or do I want to be discreet and not ask him anything? So I know that she kind of finds out a bit more from Wickham in the book. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is observe discretion and not mention that gentleman to him. Page 99, see what happens. You needn't have worried. The imprudent and indiscreet Mr. Wickham is about to tell you himself anyway. The great impropriety of this happily escapes you at present. Turn page 86. So the story continues, and Mr. Wickham tells me Mr. Darcy's dastardly deeds. We go to the ball at Netherfield. I dance with Mr. Darcy, and then we find out that and then Mr. Collins asked me to marry him. I'm just skipping along the story a little bit, but Mr. Collins has asked me to marry him, and I'm kind of tempted to say yes, just to see what happens. To save your sisters and mother from being turned out of Longbourn after the unhappy but inevitable death of your father, turn to page 108 to accept Mr. Collins. Your situation is critical, or to reject his offer and carry on. Do I accept Mr. Collins, or do I aim for a Captain Wentworth? Ooh, let's see. I'm going to have to try and keep aiming for a Captain Wentworth. Page 75, I reject Mr. Collins. So as we go along, now Jane and I have to decide whether to go to London or to Bath. Jane has been spurned by Bingley, who has left and is not returning to Netherfield, and she can either go to London, which is what happens in the story, or she can go to Bath to restore her spirits, which I feel may bring us within Henry Tilney. I'm going to go for that. So I'm going to go to Bath, and I suspect we'll have a lot of fun in Bath, because Bath in the Regency times was party town. If you've read Northanger Abbey, you know. And I've met Henry Tilney. So I've met Henry Tilney in Bath, and now I am on Catherine Morland's journey through Northanger Abbey, and we have gone to the Tilneys' home of Northanger Abbey, where Catherine Morland, her head turned with books and novels, has got it into her head that I think it is that Mr. Tilney has murdered his wife where she died. So she's going to go into the sort of forbidden door to find some clues to Mrs. Tilney's death. So to make an attempt on the forbidden door alone, turn to page 129. To do so is to risk being caught by the general. However, if he really is a murderer, who knows what he might do to you? That's Henry's father. But to play it safe and wait for Miss Tilney to accompany you, turn to page 91. I am going to turn to 129. Oh no. Henry isn't going to ask me to marry him after all. If I understand you rightly, replies Mr. Tilney in some dismay, you had formed a surmise of such horror as I have hardly words to. Dear Mrs. Bennet, consider the dreadful nature of the suspicions you have entertained. What have you been judging from? Remember the country and the age in which we live. Remember that we are English, that we are Christians. Dearest Miss Bennet, what ideas have you been admitting? You have deeply offended one of the few superior connections you have. What is wrong with you? Add extremely bad house guest to your list of failings. You return to your room in shame and embarrassment. It is not only with yourself that you are sunk, but with Henry too. No! Oh dear. No Henry Tilney for me. Let's see if I can get Captain Wentworth. So I see Charlotte off with Mr. Collins when I return to Longbourn, and then I go to visit Derbyshire with my aunt and uncle, which of course is where Mr. Darcy is from, but also Mr. Wickham, who at this moment hasn't been revealed to be a complete cad. So I could end up with Wickham. That would be weird. So first I have to go to Rosings. I have to stay with Charlotte and Mr. Collins and meet Lady Catherine de Bourgh. So I've gone to Rosings and I have continued the story of Pride and Prejudice, and Mr. Darcy has now proposed to me, and I am indignant because how dare he? Do I accept his proposal at this stage, this early stage, or do I refuse and rather die an old maid than marry Mr. Darcy? I think, oh, this is a good thing. I'm gonna accept Mr. Darcy at this point and see what happens, because it's Darcy, right? I mean, I've got to accept Mr. Darcy. I'm gonna do the opposite of what Elizabeth did though, just because I want to see how this turns out. Well, that was a bad move. So, turns out I marry Mr. Darcy. My wedding is an intimate affair because Darcy is so offended by the inferiority of my connections that it could hardly be otherwise. After you've taken leave of your family in sombre spirits, you remove with your husband to Pemberley and settle into your new life. So Darcy is civil to me. We don't really develop the fond, close connection that we did have. Should I have taught him a lesson about his pride? So he's away from home a lot, and I don't have companionship of my husband. I can't invite my family because they offend my husband. I'm bored, and so I go out walking and I bump into a farmer who happens to be Mr. Robert Martin. So if you read Emma, you'll know Robert Martin is the farmer who proposes to Emma's friend, and I forget her name off the top of my head now. And so I start having an affair with Robert Martin, a passionate affair with Robert Martin, because I'm astonished and delighted to discover he's not only literate, but actually takes a keen interest in books. Anyway, we run off. We have a full and passionate affair. It becomes public knowledge, and we're banished in disgrace, forever cut off from society. We're forced to spend the rest of our days in squalid lodgings in Portsmouth until the misery of our situation ruptures our love entirely, and you hate each other with all the ardent passion which once you loved. Wretched and grief-stricken, you take your own life in an agony of despair and regret. The end. Your mission was to marry both prudently and for love, remember? You hated Darcy, and an affair with his farm was hardly prudent, was it? You have failed. Well, I didn't end up with Captain Wentworth or Henry Tilney or even Mr. Darcy in the end. I failed. So yeah, that was good fun though. I would recommend it if you like a bit of Austen and a bit of fun. And I think I will play it again and see if I can try and get myself a Captain Wentworth or a Henry Tilney or even a Mr. Darcy properly this time round. But yeah, that's the book. Create your own Lost in Austen, Create Your Own Jane Austen Adventure by Emma Campbell Webster. And it was really good fun. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me for the ride. If you like this rambling nonsense, and not sure why you would, quite frankly, it was a little bit rambly, and you want more of this rambling nonsense, maybe think about subscribing, and hopefully I will see you again here soon. Bye!